In this video, I'm going to share with you how to finally shut up your inner critic once and for all, and a technique that I've learned that helps to work with the inner critic rather than working against it. And by the end of this video, it's my aim that you'll feel more compassion towards yourself and understand that negative inner voice. So let's dive in. And if you're somebody that has done all those healing meditations, those inner child meditations, you've read those books, you've journaled a bit, but you feel like it's not going deep enough, well, join me this coming Friday on the 16th, where I'll be running an inner child workshop, and I'll be going deep into who the inner child is, how wounds are formed, and the development of the child in early stages, and how the sense of self is formed and the ego attaches to past pain. And we'll be doing a deep visualization meditation in order for you to reconnect to your inner child, because often we suppress those wounds so much because of everyday life and the pain it causes. We feel disconnected to our innocence and our inner child. So this workshop will be a moment for you to reconnect, and you'll feel lighter by the end of it. You'll feel more at peace. So if you feel called to, click the link in the pinned comment below and sign up now. The best place we need to start is understanding where the inner critic comes from. We kind of all have that internal voice, whether that's being harsh on ourselves. We feel guilty or shame about something, and then we beat ourselves up. We get stuck in those spirals because those ugly little voices start coming up and putting yourself down. But first we've got to understand, where does this actually come from? And the key to understanding this is going back to your own childhood. Because more often than not, that inner critic, that voice, is not actually your own voice. It was the voice of a parent, maybe, a bully, a teacher, or somebody that you felt you could trust, or somebody you felt close to, you spent a lot of time with, and they put you down or something. They were heavily critical of you. Maybe it was your parents setting such high standards for you, expecting you to behave like an adult, when children only have expectations down here. Their development is down here, but often parents tend to want their child to be up here, and if they don't attain that, then maybe you were heavily criticized for that. Why can't you be like this? Do this, you're doing that wrong. Will you stop doing that? And then what can happen is you internalized that voice, and then it became your own voice. Or even you witnessed your own parent being heavily critical on themselves. And then because you witnessed that, you modeled that, and you internalized that as your own voice. And what is happening here is actually your parent or whoever was very critical of you was just projecting their own insecurities onto you. And often this is their own inner child wounds, their own fears, their own inner critic, because they were maybe highly criticized by their parents. So this is how cycles can replay and pass down to generations. That internal voice gets passed down, and it's often the person's own insecurities, their shadows, their wounds. Then they project that on to the child, which was you in this case. And then you internalize that as well. Something's wrong with me. I have to meet some expectations up here in order to feel loved, to feel whole and complete. And when you don't meet that expectation, or when you make a mistake, or you feel shame or guilt, then you are highly critical of yourself. You beat yourself up because you didn't attain this unrealistic expectation. So this is how perfectionists tend to be born if they were highly criticized in childhood. But we can come at this from a compassionate point of view when we realize that other people's insecurities, their own wounds, were projected onto you. And it's never really your own voice. And this is where we can begin to work with your own inner critic rather than against it, because it's never really about shutting up the inner critic. This is why the thumbnail said, not what you think, because if we are trying to shut that inner critic up, we are trying to shove a part of ourselves away and suppress when it's a wound that needs to be felt and heard and seen. So then when we are harsh to ourselves, go, oh, you fucked up again, you did this again, ask yourself, is this my voice? Where has this voice come from? And then we are unraveling the wound. We're unraveling this cycle of projections and shadows that have been passed down generations, and we can begin to work with it. And this is a step to take on your healing journey, your shadow work journey. And this means we can just have compassion towards ourselves, because it's just a wounded child. It's not our own voice. It was just something you internalized when you were a child. And then we can begin to show ourselves compassion and go, well, this is not my own voice. This is something that has been passed down. And then we can show compassion towards those people that have been harsh on us, that have been highly critical because they didn't know any other way. And that was just passed down onto them. People project their own insecurities onto them, and that was internalized. So for me, what I do when I do find my inner critic come up, because I do find I have a harsh inner critic due to my own childhood that was very unpredictable. I grew up in a dysfunctional family. My father was a drug addict. My mum was emotionally unavailable. She had mental health problems. She was in and out of hospitals all the time. So it was completely chaotic, and I was highly criticized as well. And so that meant a lot of what I experienced in childhood, I internalized. So then I became a perfectionist. I became very critical of myself. I wouldn't say I'm level 10 perfectionist. I'm somewhere in between. I do set high standards for myself sometimes, but I'm working with that. And I find I have a harsh inner critic sometimes that tells me that you are not good enough. You are not worthy. Who the fuck do you think you are? Look at everybody else. They're doing really well. Look at you. You're still stuck in that place. And I put myself down, and I found myself doing this unconsciously as well. And I would just find myself going into victimhood. I would say the world is against me because everybody else has it better. Look at you. You're not good enough. You can't possibly do that. You're an idiot. Why did you do that? And because I was doing this a lot unconsciously, I was on autopilot without realizing. I didn't realize how actually insecure I felt. Particularly when it came to my content, I kept saying, that shit, you're not good enough, you're crap at this. And then it was the end of last year where I became aware of that more. I knew I had some insecurities of not feeling like worthy in that, but I didn't realize how harsh I was on myself, and I was in that comparison trap. So then when I find myself doing this, what I do is I just show myself compassion and know that this is not my true voice. This is who who I am. And I'm somebody that talks out loud to themselves. I think this is really, really healthy. So if you talk out loud to yourself, Don't worry, I'm pretty sure a lot of people do that. And so if I find myself being really harsh on myself, putting myself down, feeling really insecure, what I do is I talk out loud to myself. I say something positive instead of critical. I tell myself, I am so proud of you right now. You are doing it. You can achieve anything. You are so blessed right now. So rather than getting myself stuck in this spiral going downwards, this trap of the harsh inner critic, I try and lift myself up, but at the same time, I ask myself, where's this voice come from? And this is a really good journaling prompt. You can go deep with this and understand that internal voice a bit more and know that it's not your own voice. It's not your true self. So I hope this video has been really helpful. I just wanted to do a quick one today. This is not as long as my normal ones. So with that being said, this video next dives further into mummy issues, and I will see you over there. Much love.